Welcome into the Fairview Social Podcast. I wanted to talk today about, I guess, something that I'm proud of over the years, or actually throughout my whole life. I don't know that there's a ton of things that I've been proud of over my life, with the exception of my marriage or my kids or, something like that. I haven't really done anything extravagant or amazing in my life. But as I look back at my life and look at some of the things that I've done, there's obviously some standout things. And one of them is the music that I played and that I wrote when I was younger. And every now and then I get to listening to those songs and listening to the things that I wrote and things that Jeremy and I wrote together. And I think, wow, that some of that stuff is pretty good. Some of it has stood the test of time and some of it hasn't. But I just thought that I would start a series here on the the rise and fall of Chester Boom. Chester Boom is a band that I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. But I just thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about some of these songs. I will preface this whole conversation with, I would like to do this with Jeremy, but I don't think that he has any interest in doing this right now. So I'm going to do this alone, which I just prefer to have someone else with me so that, there's kind of, he would remember things that I don't remember and vice versa. And so it's kind of fun to have the conversation. So, but he's not here, so I'm going to just go ahead and do this. But it's funny because Jeremy has been a friend for a long time, and we knew each other in kindergarten. And I always think about how I have this memory of him falling off the jungle gym thing outside at the playground, and he fell and he hit his head and it was bleeding. And I remember I was crying because I was so scared that it was going to happen to me. It was also because, he was a classmate and someone that I knew, and I thought that he hurt himself. But I also remember thinking that maybe I'm going to fall off that jungle gym and then the same thing's going to happen to me. But I've known Jeremy for a long time. And, as we got older, we went to high school together, and we'd play in talent shows. We kind of learned that we both had a love for music. He was kind of playing things on his own, and I was learning how to play guitar and playing things on my own. And, he was just a very, very talented musician. I remember going to his house one time. One of the things that we really bonded on was Weezer. And I go to his house, and in his room, he had, a normal teenager's room, but he had like this old shitty drum set up that he had, and this big ass like reel to reel recorder that I guess his dad had and had given him, and he was like recording cover songs, or and he'd do stuff that he that he wrote. But it's not like it is now where everything's digital and it's very easy to have an idea and record something and throw it down real quick. He had this big elaborate tape, the big circle tape reel to reels, and he would record like songs from the Weezer Blue album and Green Day songs and stuff like that. And so it was always kind of funny. He always had something like that going, but he recorded it and played it back, and I remember at the time I was like, wow, you recorded that and that sounds awesome. So he was just always into Weezer, Green Day, Real Big Fish, Rancid. He was very into the punk stuff, while I was into more of the alternative to harder rock, like Smashing Pumpkins or, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and that kind of stuff. And so when we started playing together, it was I always like to say that we leveled each other out. I think that where we landed is we were both very big fans of Weezer and Foo Fighters. And so if you go back and listen to the Chester Boom stuff, a lot of the influence on that was heavily Weezer and Foo Fighters. And so a lot of the writing styles and things like that were that kind of music. And so we just really kind of clicked on that. So we started this band. Our friend Clay that I've mentioned on here before, he played bass. We started a band when, I don't know, we were probably sophomores or might juniors. Just so everybody knows, I'm really bad at times as far as like 3 or 4 year stretches. You know, I'm always messing it up on here and I always get called out on it, but it was around sophomore, junior year. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, we started this band with Clay and we were looking for a name and we couldn't figure out a name. And then finally we landed on the goddamn Spider Monkeys, and we love that name. And we were going to use it, but then we started thinking, because we were going to start playing shows, that it was inappropriate, which it was highly inappropriate. So we ended up calling the band The Imps, IMPS. And so we would do cover songs. We'd play some Green Day songs and some the Ramones and Smashing Pumpkins, just all the stuff that we liked. And Jeremy played drums. I played guitar, and Clay played bass. I think that at that time, Jeremy would usually sing. I didn't really want to sing, and even to this day, I like to sing, but I don't really have a good voice, so I try to stay away from it. But we played some shows. We played at this place in Dixon. I think it was called the Seashell Cabana back then on the square in Dixon. And I remember we were trying to rally people to come to it. You know, there's like 10 people there, something ridiculous. But it was funny because we just thought it was the most amazing thing ever. We thought we were going to be rock stars. We're going to be famous. You know, there'd be other bands there and we'd see them and they completely like blow us away. Or there would be bands there that like completely suck. And we were just right down in the middle. We weren't great, but we weren't awful. So it was fun. We had a lot of good times. We did some talent shows. We played Buddy Holly in the talent show, Weezer's Buddy Holly. That was a lot of fun. We played Everlong by Foo Fighters in the talent show. We had our Norwegian exchange student, Gaute. He played the bass on that. And that was a lot of fun, so that was a cool memory. But anyway, we get out of high school, and, time's gone on. Jeremy's in other bands. You know, I got a girlfriend, so I was just spending time with a girl. And after we get out of high school, we kind of make our way back to each other in a sense of like we start playing music together. And we just started writing some songs. I happened to be going through a pretty significant breakup in my life. You know, it's like, it was so massive back then. It was like a life-changing event for me then. Of course, when you look back over 20 years later, it was like, it's just a blip in your life when you have a relationship and then it ends. But in that time, it was, we wrote an album called Destroying All the Sparkles. And it's funny because we called it that because the girl that I was dating at the time was really into sparkles and stuff like that. And I was mad at her because she broke up with me. And it's all funny to think about now because life has moved on and everything's fine. But we called the album Destroying All the Sparkles. And I think we had about 10 songs on there. And me and Jeremy's writing process would be... we had songs that we kind of wrote in high school. There was songs that I wrote. There was songs that he wrote. There were songs that we wrote together. And it's just like this hodgepodge of just like music. And so we kind of formed all that into this album. And it was really cool. It was really cool to see it form. It was cool that we had these songs, we were playing them. Usually, him and I would play these songs together, acoustic, because we didn't have a band. It was just me and him. And that's what we did for a little while. We might have played an acoustic show or two here and there. I remember we played at a fucking Kroger parking lot for a for a tailgate party, and no one listened to us. We had a little bit more wisdom to us at this time because I think we were 19 or 20, as opposed to we were 14, 15, 16 years old playing like we did back in high school, but we knew we didn't think that we were the best thing in the world. We knew that we were just a couple idiots playing music. So anyway, we write this album and we're like, you know what? We need to record this album. So Jeremy's dad, he's in the music industry, knows a lot of people as far as like producers and people that have studios and things like that. And so he hooked us up with this guy. His name was Dennis. Dennis was he was this, at the time, he was an older guy. Obviously, if he's still alive, he's even older now, but he had this long, beautiful white mullet. And he had a big old gut like me, but he knew his music. And, so me and Jeremy go into his studio, which was really nice. He had a nice reel-to-reel system. Digital was getting pretty popular. I think it was pretty popular at that point, but we were traditionalists. That group of people back then is like, no, we're not going digital, which there's something to be said, because I know that Foo Fighters typically record with they record on tape as opposed to doing it digitally, because there is something to be said about you get a better sound, or you get a more, it just doesn't seem so, I don't know what the word is, robot-like. It's too polished. It's a little bit more raw when you record on tape. And so we go in there to record this album, and Jeremy can play drums, and he was a really good drummer. When we were in school together, I think he originally started playing drums, and then he switched over to guitar and that stuff. So he wasn't playing drums as much, but he's a great drummer. But when we went to the studio, he thought that we should, because his dad knew this guy that did professional drumming, like he was a studio drummer. And Jeremy was like, we need to just have this guy play the drums on it so it's perfect. And I remember being kind of hesitant about it. Like, no, I don't know if we need to do that because we don't know this guy, because these songs are your babies. These songs are, you save up the money to go and record this, because I don't remember how much we paid. I don't think it was a ton, but for us back then, it was a ton to get a little studio time. And I was, I didn't know anything about studio drummers or anything like that. But, so I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever, because Jeremy was always very good at, and I was pretty good at this too. It's like, we know what we want this to sound like. We know what the song sounds like in our head, even though we're sitting there playing these things acoustic. We know what it sounds like with full band. We always had pretty good vision of that. And so I didn't know if this guy would be able to match our vision. So anyway, we go to the studio, and this guy comes in. I can't remember his name, but he comes in. I remember he was bald, and he was a very slender guy. He comes in. He's never heard these songs before. And so he's like, hey, can you play the song? And I remember we didn't even play the whole song of some of them. I think we had the lyrics to it or something. We gave him the lyrics. We played the song. He's like, all right, got it. And then he just fucking whips it out. And me and Jeremy are like amazed that someone can do that. At the time we didn't know any better, but for those of you that don't know, studio drummers are or any studio musician is awesome because they just know. They know how to play. They know what to do. They know what they go off feeling. They know what feels right. And it's really is an amazing thing to experience, that any stops or anything that we thought was kind of crazy and messed up, like they would know it. They'd figure it out, and they would make the stops, do the fills, do all the things that you're kind of hearing in your head, you know? And so we recorded these songs. I think we did it over a few weekends or something like that. And the unfortunate thing with it all is that, you know, the album never got finished as far as like a mix down. So we got all the songs recorded, and it's a rough mix. It wasn't ever finalized, which the next album that we did was not finalized either. But for the purposes of this particular podcast, we'll talk about the other stuff later. But it was good enough that we would like make CDs and sell them and do all the things that you did back then in the early 2000s and before that, where you go out and you play shows and you try to sell your CDs and you try to sell your shirts. And, you know, it was pre-social media, so there's no advertising it on there. It's just, you know, just going out and trying to hustle. And we would play shows around town. And basically, it's not like we had a choice of like, oh, we can play a show here or we can play a show there or anywhere. It's like we're practically begging to do this. But anyway, so we record the album. We have the studio drummer do it. And it's still just me and Jeremy. Jeremy plays the bass on that album. And we didn't have a bass player. So we'll go into all that in another episode. But I do want to go through some of these songs over the next few episodes. We'll just pepper them in on the Fairview Social Podcast here and there, just so you can kind of hear some of these songs. And again, I'm not proud of all of them. Some of them are goofy in a effort to be transparent with everybody. I will play songs that I don't necessarily want to hear the light of day because some people think that they're great. You know, it's different if it's weird because my family says, oh yeah, this song is great, or these songs are awesome. Well, to you, maybe, but to the masses, I doubt it. And so you guys can be the judge of it. I think that like I said in the beginning, I'm very proud of some of these songs, and some of them I'm not. But the first one that I'm going to play at the end of this episode is called Calm Me Down. And we wrote this, I remember Jeremy's dad was visiting with him over at his apartment, and we were playing it. And I'll never forget that we played this for his dad, and there's a part in there that you hear, it's like, oh, woohoo. There's like a woohoo that plays kind of throughout the song. And his dad told us, he said, every song that's ever been like massive hits have usually had some kind of like dumb little hook like that. If you think of like Blur's Song 2, it's like, oh, woohoo. Or any of these kind of Beatles songs, that kind of stuff. It's like, if you have that little kind of hook in there, people like that stuff. And it's because they're sing-along type songs and they're fun, and people generally like listening to them. So this is a poppy little song. It was always fun to play it when we would play it live. But yeah, check it out. You can let me know if you like it or dislike it. I don't really care either way at this point. But I would say that when we recorded this album, this was going to be the single on the album because we were really happy with it. And a lot of this stuff, a lot of the songs that are on this album are very poppy and stuff like that. And then our later stuff was like more rock. So you can see where Jeremy and I were, you know, kind of in between playing like his punk roots and my more alternative rock type roots, and we make this more of Weezer-ish. And then as time goes on, we made things a little bit more rocking. And so check the song out, and I do appreciate everybody listening to this podcast. This is the first time I've done a solo one, and I just want you all to know that I appreciate everyone that's listened. I hope that you enjoy it. I try to do a little something for everyone. You know, I'm not 100% let's just talk about Fairview. That's really not the case. I just wanted to get on here and talk about whatever. There's some funny conversations, serious conversations, just with everything going on in the world right now. It's it's good to have something to escape to for an hour or so, or, this episode here will be 20 or 30 minutes and, just take your mind off of things. So stay tuned, enjoy the song, and I'll see you on the next one.
Stuck in traffic, trying to get to your house. The highway's crowded and the rain is pouring down. The air conditioner's broken, I'm sweaty and moist. I'm getting pissed, I need to hear your sweet voice. Could you calm me down? Calm me down before I kill someone. Yeah, you calm me down before it's too late. People in this world anger me to no end. The one bright spot